What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast that is a proud partner of the Eurostep Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I am your host, Numac, coming to you live on the YouTube, fresh off of 2,000 subscribers. So thank you to everybody that has subscribed on the YouTube, having us surpass that awesome milestone. We appreciate you. And joining me to talk about this cathartic win over the San Francisco 49ers is my lovely co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how are you doing, buddy?
I am not muted anymore. There we go. I'm doing very well. It is great to come talk about the Packers winning, but it's great to talk about it when they win easily, even against a team that when we were looking at the 2024 NFL season schedule when it was released early May. This is, I believe, we always do our little like top 3 games that we circle around. 49ers game, it's the easiest one to circle. It's the team that ended your season last year.
For sure.
It has, on paper, one of the best talent assembled in the NFL. Their season has gone haywire. Brock Purdy did not play tonight. They
Nope.
did not have Nick Bosa.
Nope. No Trent
Even
Williams.
with all that said,
No
no
Trent
Trent
Williams.
Williams.
No Tre'Davious Ward.
Even with all that said, you still play the team in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And the 49ers are still good enough to be a spoiler. They still have plenty to play for. Their fortunes or future is not secured by any means in terms of making the playoffs, much less winning their division. So, yeah, rough them up, beat them up, rawhide. That's what I say.
And they did just that
Knock 'em
tonight. They did just that tonight, 38-10 over the Niners in what was a bit of a touch and go game. I think in the middle part of it, I think we got a little bit cozy, is how I'll say. And then at one point it was 21-10 or 17-7 rather. I think, yeah, no, 17-10 it would have been then after the
So it was 17-7.
yeah. And then it got a little close, but then Packers just end up closing the game out with a strong 7-point third quarter and 14-point fourth quarter. And then the defense really stepped up their game in the second half. Like, I think the defense did a good job today. They had a couple of turnovers. One off of the head of Lucas Van Ness, another one with Keyshawn Nixon punching the ball out from Christian McCaffrey. But there was always those throws open under the middle today. But other than that, like, George Kittle was really the only guy on the Niners that had a standout day, and that's just because he's George Kittle. So, but yeah, very good win. Yeah, like I said, cathartic. It felt good to beat this team, even if it wasn't against all of their stars. Like, it just felt good to beat up on the Niners, and for all intents and purposes, likely end their playoff push as they go to face Buffalo next week. Who knows how healthy they are going to that game, but yeah, it felt good to sort of twist the knife on that one.
Yeah, it was not as we talked about in our preview it was a little hard to kind of forecast how to game plan and see what was going to work, what was not in terms of who is available, what kind of 49ers team are we going to see. Not having, as you mentioned, 4 consequential starters on both sides of the ball took a damper, but still, Brandon Allen, if they're trying out Brandon Allen, they feel that that is the best person, considering the circumstances, to win a football game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to, I think we're grading on a curve here, but it wasn't like he was terrible.
No, I thought he
made,
played pretty decent, actually.
Yeah, it was not, it was, I mean, of the 2 quarterbacks, you could say that Brandon Allen had a better game than Jordan Love. There were different circumstances why that was the case, but but at a certain point, it was just the throws in the middle of the field were the difference maker. It foreshadowed with the Quay Walker interception.
Yeah, that was tough.
When has that happened before? But same, it felt like the same route or kind of throw where it's right like along the hash marks, if not a little bit more inward towards the middle of the field. and Xavier McKinney at literally the perfect moment. I had to bring this up on where they were in the field, but it was definitely in Packers territory because
Mm-hmm.
they were getting some
It was a long return too.
yeah, long return. Yeah, it was Green Bay 45, so just over halfway. And you know, he picks it off. He picked it off at the Green Bay 26. So pushing into field goal range if bordering onto the red zone. And Xavier Kinney just that changed the game. It's where the game essentially was over because
For sure.
he takes it halfway down the field, pushing into Packers red zone territory. And for as kind of lifeless, not lifeless, but a little stuck in mud as the offense was in the second half, largely, when you're working with short field opportunities, even with all the struggles that they've had in red zone, short field areas, um, it just helps having a good jump start. Like that, it's debilitating against a 49ers team that was clearly just searching for something and didn't have everything that they wanted. So yeah, like to your point, the defense made sure that this was not a game at all. Like there are
No.
moments, and I know the broadcast maybe it's just to jazz it up and give it a little bit more entertainment, but this is not a close game, and it's good that the final score reflected that. Where I feel like there have been precious few games where it's felt like that for the Packers this year.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Uh the turnover battle, Packers winning it is I think the biggest thing. You're working with short field often, it's going to be a lot easier. They had that Xavier McKinney interception, Lucas Van Ness forcing the fumble with his head on Brandon Allen, and then Nixon's forced fumble on Christian McCaffrey. All like big swings in the game. When I think the McCaffrey one was less so because it was pretty late in the game, but just all very important plays in the game that just led to them blowing them out, which is important against this team. Like you want to face a team that's in front of you. Well, you want to face a team that's in front of you for all intents and purposes to just beat them down. So I'm glad that that's what happened. Like it looked better than the 38-10 score that it was. Like I think they played quite well. The offense needed to get into form a little bit more than they have been recently. But other than that, like I think the defense played well. They let up a couple plays, but that's just kind of going to happen over the course of a game. You can't hold every team to 0 points, and I think 10 points is a pretty solid performance from them. Um, Plus, I think like everyone just contributed. We saw obviously Xavier McKinney, Carrington Valentine almost stripped. I believe it was Jawan Jennings on a catch down the field over the middle. They're in the middle of the game. And then Rashawn Gary was getting pressures. He didn't get home. He might have gotten home today. I forget. I'm checking the stats. Now, yeah, he did get a sack today. That was the one early, I believe. Quay Walker, I think, started that one. Oh, and Rashawn had a forced fumble too on that Quay Walker sack that Brandon Allen then retrieved or picked up by himself and then got sacked. But I mean, yeah, a lot of people contributed today. Javon Bullard had a good breakup. Evan Williams was flying around. Obviously, we talked about X, talked about Keyshawn. Carl Brooks recovered a fumble, so did Kenny Clark. Like there was a lot of people just in on plays today, which is what you want to see coming from a team going against Brandon Allen. And like I said, I don't think he played too bad. 17, 29, almost 200 yards, a touchdown and a pick. But good on the defense for showing up and laying the smackdown where they needed to. Like I feel like when the PFF stats talk about how many pressures are going to come out of this game, it's going to be a lot. I feel like there was a lot of tenacity coming out of that edge rush today, and up the middle for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think your point about everybody was kind of you could highlight a good play for largely everybody that saw regular snaps, and it's true. Like that, this is a very team total effort, and that again when you win as resoundingly as they did, that
Mm-hmm.
feels good.
Oh, it feels really good.
It feels really good. And to your point, like this wasn't like we've seen going back to the Texans game. The Packers defense was stifling, like against a CJ Stroud level player
Mm-hmm.
who Yeah, year two hasn't been as smooth as year one was, but still, like, he's a very good quarterback in this league. Brandon Allen was moving the ball. Like it wasn't to the level of like what we saw against the Texans even. And obviously that's going to come with the playmakers that the 49ers have, but you still are doing what you're being directed to.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like in terms of just again, it's not Brock Purdy, it's not the normal 49ers team, but you can't fault the Packers for rising up to the opportunity. It's very easy for it to be the other way, where they look down on, oh, look at this journeyman quarterback that I can't remember if they played against Brandon Allen when it was the Bengals. That might have been Joe Burrow then, but
I forget, but
uh,
he did make a few starts against the Bengals or with the Bengals.
with the Bengals, and I want to say that
That
was
was Brandon Allen.
yeah when the Packers played them.
Yeah,
It was that Evan McPherson Mason Crosby game where they
traded.
both were dueling to like
Oh,
lose the game.
yeah, I do remember that. I
I
forget
could
that
be wrong,
was him or not.
but still, like with the that in mind of your game plan is kind of thrown out the window. I just
Mm-hmm.
felt like it was just good to see the energy, the activity, and the level of focus all throughout every phase of the game. Like
Right.
the 49ers would still make big plays, and still didn't matter. It still be able to force those plays. It wasn't letting things get out from under you and seeing the game gets turned on its head based on whatever. And plus, too, we should mention the 49ers couldn't get out of their own way. That was
No, a lot
the
of
Packers had a
penalties.
big helping, a lot of penalties. Packers had a huge helping hand in the offensive line struggling,
Mm-hmm.
struggling big time. It
Mm-hmm.
was holding false starts. I believe their rookie lineman Dominic Puny committed three penalties unto himself.
Wouldn't surprise me. Couple of holdings
It,
for sure.
it was very just if that's if that's the one lens that you want to look at the Packers team beating, like a JV level version of the 49ers, then so be it. Like I totally give it up to that because that in itself was like, we're not even touching on Debo Samuel, first play out of the second half, takes it 87 yards. Like that's where the
Yeah,
game could have been a totally different game.
totally different
Gets
game.
called back because of holding.
Yep.
And Packers get a huge big break. It just felt like every break that went the Packer like that occurred in this game went to the Packers way, and
Yeah. Every
it's
call,
easy to win that way.
every call went the Packers' way tonight, and I'm not gonna complain about that. Like that's some good juju. But like even when Jordan Love throws the interception in the end zone on the perceived free play where they had 12 men in the field, Packers have a legal motion or legal formation, whichever call it was, that offsets that penalty, and then the Niners come right back out and have a 12 men in the field before the snap even happens. Like that's just not being focused as a team from the Niners, and we'll take it. Like that got them 5 yards closer and basically the same play that they would have had the previous play. So even like that little swing helps, all things considered too. But um, let's we got to talk about the man of the hour. Got to talk about the man of the hour, and that is Josh Jacobs.
Yes.
Absolute, just incredible. Probably the best running performance we've seen from a running back in a very long time. 106 yards on 26 carries, 3 touchdowns, and then he was targeted in the receiving game, but Jordan Love's throw was a bit too far outside for him to be able to catch it. But I mean, man alive, 106 yards and 3 touchdowns. He goes for the trifecta and the hat trick. I think Aaron Jones might have had like a 3 touchdown game before.
I have this
There you go.
question. You are correct. He's even had a four touchdown game. Can you? I mean, come on. You got to know this
It's
one,
the
right?
Dallas game.
It is the Dallas game.
Yeah.
Uh, three other players have had four touchdown games.
Hmm.
Two are, I would say, popular Packers
Well, they said on the
running backs.
broadcast that he's the first Packers player to have 100 yards and 3 touchdowns since Dorsey Levens.
You are correct.
There's a
Dorsey
throwback.
Levens is one. Dorsey Levens also had four touchdowns in a game too, so that might have been the same one.
Um, There's another one.
Yeah, Jim Taylor
Ah,
had three, four touchdown games.
Jesus.
Unsurprisingly, he has the most rushing touchdowns in Packers history. And Turdell Middleton, shout out to Middleton. He had four rushing touchdowns in I would presume, a win over the Seahawks. But it was 1978, so you never know with those Packers at that time.
You never know. But yeah, Josh Jacobs today absolutely controlling the pace of this game from the get go. I think through the first drive and a half, he had 50 yards, and I think like six broken tackles after the first drive and a half. Like he was having his way today for all intents and purposes. They couldn't stop him. The only people that could stop him were his own muscles, considering he had cramps and had to leave the game and go get an IV drip, I believe, in the locker room. But what an absolute stud of a player, and he'd contribute to this being the main stat of the game. I think the time of possession. Packers held the ball for 36 minutes and 45 seconds during this game, 23 minutes and 17 seconds for the 49ers, and it honestly felt like that for a majority of the first half, and as it bled into the second half, the they put up a sad stat where I think it was like by the end of the first quarter, like the Niners were about to start their like second drive or something, and they flashed this down on the screen. It said Packers rush yards 66 and 49ers rush yards 1. It's like,
Yeah.
oh boy. But yeah, I mean, talk about Josh Jacobs being an absolute superstar, replacing Aaron Jones. They talked about that in the broadcast too, where Aaron Jones leaves, obviously beloved by the team. We've litigated this a whole bunch. I mean, but Josh Jacobs comes in and just has replaces Aaron Jones's production, if not exceeds it, through already what is it now, 11 games through the season. And we talk about Xavier McKinney being the best free agent signing the Packers have had in a long time and one of the more impactful ones. Josh Jacobs is right up there now. He's having a absolute standout year, and for them to have this running game work as well as it has been lately, it just opens up everything else for the rest of the team to make it that much easier for the offense to click. And I think it looked better today. There was still a couple of hiccups in the passing game, but I mean, Josh Jacobs, it's hard to tackle the guy. He was breaking through
Yep.
tackles and getting so many yards after contact that I wouldn't be surprised if he is right up near Derrick Henry, because I think it's like him, it's Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and I think Saquon are like 1, 2, and 3. But today was more evidence of that if you're not wrapping up Josh Jacobs, you're not going to tackle him. He had a couple of spin moves in there that were really pretty, a lot of cutbacks. Just like my word, what a game from Josh Jacobs.
Um, I'm stealing the joke that I made on Blue Sky during the
Oh
game
boy.
that every Sunday is leg day for Josh Jacobs. Um, Couple stats. Josh Jacobs is the first 100-yard rusher that the 49ers have allowed in 55 games.
Wow.
Um, yeah. 15 missed tackles officially is the most for any ball carrier per NFL Next Gen stats. Josh Jacobs, of course, was the supplier, whatever, recipient, uh, whatever you want to call it. You mentioned, I think you were like, this is one of the best rushing performances we've seen. Sorry. You mentioned that this is one of the best rushing performances we've seen from a Packers player in quite some time. And I was going to immediately say, since Josh Jacobs in week 2 against the Colts,
Yeah,
like,
probably.
it's at this point, this is just a feature of who he is. And like, obviously, it's really good. But as much as we adored Aaron Jones, like, if I think of prototypical Packer, like consummate Packer,
Hmm.
like what that means, I think Aaron Jones is like, if not that, he's right up there in terms of on and off the field.
Right.
The difference, having watched Josh Jacobs enough, is this is just a different dynamic.
I'm sorry.
I said
I
washed.
couldn't get over your flub. Go on.
Let me wash myself over from
Why don't you
making
wash
a
yourself
terrible.
of this point and reset?
No. Well, I just feel like when we talk about like how they Tom Brady was talking about this on the broadcast, and my God, like he's whatever. That's we're not going to get into that today, but um, they were talking about like when you get deeper into the season, like November, December, January football. And the thing about the Packers' mystique is that when you land Lambeau and it's the elements start to play a factor, and you're more reliant on the running game because you can't rely on making big plays when it's freezing. Not that the weather is really much of a factor today, but when I think of like just power running game, Packers history, it's like synonymous with that. Josh Jacobs like epitomizes that. This
Right.
super strong runner that you can you could it's Chumbawamba. You can knock him down, but he's got to get up again. You know what I mean? Like that is what I'm saying is that he's just this super strong, durable, powerful runner that it's always just going to keep going. And like you mentioned, like the only person that was stopping Josh Jacobs was his body. I don't know. I feel like we're getting to the point where we're starting to run out of words how to describe just like how monumental he's been to this team, especially when Jordan Love has been up and down, and today wasn't a perfect game by any means. Not that
Mm-hmm.
I would say it was all on him because I think we'll save the discussion about Love later. But yeah, it's like this guy is just crazy. It's crazy how much he's kind of. It's crazy how much Josh Jacobs has helped us all kind of move on from Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
And it's not just a matter of how well he's playing. It's that he's taken on everything that's good about or that was good about Aaron Jones in that locker room and taken that on himself. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about this season and the years after that happened, we're going to talk about just how kind of what a different dynamic it is with Josh Jacobs. Not that it's was totally terrible with Aaron Jones. You know what I'm trying to say.
Right. No, I think that if the Josh Jacobs signing looks a lot worse by comparison, like if say he's not good this year, I think we're looking over at Minnesota and being like, man, that doesn't feel good that he's having this kind of year, and we're stuck with a running back that isn't producing. But to be honest, I don't think about Aaron Jones a whole lot. He's on my fantasy team. That's really the only time I think about him is when I set my lineup. But on Sunday, I'm rarely thinking about him during Packers games because Josh Jacobs just is that dude, and he's having such a good year that there's really no need to think about him. And so I think this is a good example of his leadership as well. Um, on screen for your YouTube folks. This is from ESPN Milwaukee. They tweeted it out, but post game from Josh Jacobs, quote, "I know how much this game meant to the team," end quote. And for a guy that wasn't here for that loss last year and wasn't here for any of these other losses that the Packers have suffered to the Niners over the last 5-6 years, he didn't know any better. Like he doesn't know the trauma that some of these guys had to go through. Doesn't know some of the emotional heartbreak that happened last year during the playoffs for them. But he played just as well and played like it mattered to him as much as it mattered to the other guys that were a part of those heartbreaking losses. So good on him to really show out and like lead by example for this team because he had a really good game in and of himself, but I think he also just kickstarted the rest of the running game too. Like they only had 13 carries outside of Josh Jacobs, but 9 carries, 41 yards for Emmanuel Wilson, and 4 carries, 11 yards for Chris Brooks. And I think kudos to the offensive line. We went too far in this discussion without talking about why Josh Jacobs was having such a good day. The holes opening for Josh Jacobs today were enormous.
Yeah.
Like the kudos to all 5 offensive linemen. That was an absolute clinic they put on today when it talks about run blocking. Like I think there was maybe 1 or 2 carries from Josh Jacobs, maybe 1 or 2 from the other guys as well, where they got like less than 2 yards on a carry. And I think it was because it was an obvious running situation. And it's like, oh, you've ran 4 times in a row for first downs. We're just gonna sell out on the run and try and stop you, and that's what happened. I mean, but
Yeah.
but if that's what it takes to stop the run against this team, by all means, I will take it. And so, uh yeah, big kudos to the big guys up front.
Yeah. I'm just looking at through the Packers game log. There have only been two games where they have had fewer than 100 rushing yards in a game. Like this team is so for all the kind of consternation that we talked about last year is like this team couldn't produce a stable running game until Aaron Jones got healthy.
Yeah.
Like obviously when you're that much player dependent, like it helps. But now it just feels totally different. It doesn't feel the same way of like Josh Jacobs. They're again, they're a very successful running team, running
Mm-hmm.
the football team. But Emmanuel Wilson's having moments. Chris
Mm-hmm.
Brooks, for all the hand wringing that we've had about his usage, now that Marshawn Lloyd is essentially redshirted this year, um, it just they've been able to just move the ball with regularity and do it at such a high clip. I mean, how many rushes did they have today? What was it as a team?
As a
42
Yep.
carries, 169 yards, 4 yards of carry, and obviously the three rushing touchdowns. Like it's just so overwhelming that the fact that it's at this point in the year and is this machine is not slowing down is
Mm-hmm.
huge, just huge.
Yeah. On screen for the people listening on in their podcast feeds. Josh Jacobs ran for 26 times today, 106 yards and 3 touchdowns in Week 12 against the Niners, recording the most missed tackles, 15 by any ball carrier this season. Jacobs has now forced 67 missed tackles this season, tied for second most entering the NFL before Sunday Night Football. I would imagine first is Derrick Henry, as it has been all season. I mean, but like now that's a carry chart. The He has two tackles for a loss, and I can't do all the counting all the lines because there's so many of them. But
You look at the silly string.
the silly
Someone just
string,
it's
yeah,
homecoming week and someone just got your house.
that's right. But no, yeah, kudos to Josh Jacobs and the rest of the big men because that set the tone for today, and they absolutely needed it. I think coming out of an ugly win last week, it's good to go from facing a division rival who you should have beat up on in the Chicago Bears and win by a fingernail, and then come into this game, come back at home, and just beat the bricks off of a depleted team. Like this is what we wanted to see out of like the Jaguars, and what we want like out of the Jaguars game, and what we wanted to see out of the Bears game, what we wanted to see out of the Titans game, and stuff like that. And I think they're coming into that now, and if they can keep doing this, even with the offense looking a little bit not on not 100% at times,
Yeah.
then they're gonna be in a good spot. So Um, let's talk about the rest of the offense. Let's give them a look. This is before we do that, this is from Zachary Jacobson from Packers Wire, I believe. Uh yeah, I believe so.
Packer report.
Packer Report, yep. Packers Wire is the other one. Zach Kurz. Um,
They're rivals, Numac.
I know.
That as much as established.
I know. Jordan Love on the 49ers missing Brock Purdy and Nick Bosa. Quote, it's the NFL. They've got other good players. We've had injuries. Guys are banged up. You got to find a way to go out there and win no matter who's out there. It's tough for them, but we'll take the win. Yeah, I'm all about it. Like, keep that energy. Like, you don't have or pity for a team that's injury plagued because the Packers have been there too. Like, every team has injuries in the NFL. You have to find out a different way to do it. And that's why
Not everybody
there's
has a Malik Willis.
not everyone has a Malik Willis, and that's why there's 53 guys on the roster and not just 25. Like
Yeah.
you need guys to step up, and Packers were lucky today to go in there mostly healthy at most of their positions. Jair being one of the bigger inactives, but outside of that, they had most of all their guys to start the game, and thankful for that. And we'll keep knocking on wood that they're healthy the rest of the season. But yeah, love that quote from Jordan Love. But yeah, the rest of the offense today, we'll start with the general offense, I'll say. Happy that after a bum week last week when it came to the red zone and how they've been pretty much all season, today the Packers make 5 red zone trips and scored 5 touchdowns in all those trips. So a big upgrade on what happened last week and what has been the status quo for the regular season so far, and really finished finished drives with touchdowns when they needed to. Like on the first drive, I was like, you have to get 7 here. They took up 7.5 minutes on their first drive,
Yeah.
and to not get a touchdown there would have let the Niners have a lot of momentum coming out on their first drive, depleted or not, without Brock Purdy. But it gives the team confidence that, hey, we can go down and score any which way, and the game is tied or we have the lead. And so to go out there, punch it in, get 7. Also, that Tucker Kraft touchdown, very funny. He
Yeah.
absolutely truck sticked Josh Myers because
Yes.
he got tackled from behind or was
Well,
almost
friendly
tackled.
fire.
Yeah, and then he got like pushed into Josh Myers, who he just pushed right out of the way. I laughed. I had to rewind that one. I was like, oh boy, he got absolutely truck sticked. But yeah, like very good improvement on what was last week, where they really just finished drives how they needed to. It only took a couple of field goals or one field goal, 50-yarder in the second quarter. So
All 5 red zone trips were 5 touchdowns.
yeah,
Believe
it
it or
was good.
not.
It was good.
Yeah. Um, Even like I know Wes Hotkowitz mentioned this at one point. Packers were 1-1 on fourth downs, 5 for 5 in red zone, 4 for 4 in goal to go situations. We're 6 of 13 on third downs, which I believe last week weren't they like 1 of 10? Some crazy
Something like that.
stat.
Something not good for sure.
It was definitely not good, and that is a lot better. um, yeah, like again, this offense. You look at 4.9 average yards per play. It's not overwhelming, but when you factor in that they were working largely with shorter fields, yeah, they're 1 for 5 last week. I just had to look this up. 1 for 5 is just what a weird stat given how that game was.
Yeah.
But
Well, because they were getting a
um,
lot of yards on first and second down was the main thing. They just
yeah,
couldn't
that's true.
convert on third down.
Um, but yeah, like which how good Josh Jacobs is doing. Obviously, that shines the light on how the run game was. Passing game was not as smooth, let's just say. It felt very much once the uh not Hail Mary, but the what should have been a touchdown to Christian Watson.
Oh,
He struggles to bring in
yeah. No.
despite beating his guy, and
Struggles to beat it and is putting it lightly. He dropped it. It hit him in the worst spot, Jordan.
yeah, it hit him in the worst spot. Well, you make that sound like he got hit in the,
I know.
you know,
But no, it hit him right in the hands.
yeah. He's not
Like
Hans Mole Man.
he has to catch that ball. Like I
Yeah,
was that was when I was at the end of that drive when they ultimately missed the touchdown to Watson. Like he drops it and what would have been a walk-in touchdown. I didn't agree with the play calling the next 2 plays because they then proceeded to
yeah.
take 2 deep shots after on second and third down. I would have rather them get closer for a field goal. But that's where I was like, man, I really hope that Christian Watson drop touchdown doesn't loom large in this game. Like that would feel really bad. And luckily it didn't. But yeah, there was a couple of drops today that weren't ideal. Um, Christian Watson's, and I think who else had one? Maybe Dobbs. Yeah,
Um,
Dobbs when it was behind him a little bit. The ball wasn't exactly a
yes.
spiral, but it was behind him a bit, and that Jordan Love again lucky that ball wasn't picked off because right through the hands and I think went off of a rookie's hands. So
Um, yeah, I just felt from that point on that the passing game kind of sputtered out. Another key stat, next gen stats had 40% of Jordan Love's 25 dropbacks were pressured, which is the highest he's faced this year. Kind of shocking considering that the Packers, I believe, at one point in time, if it doesn't still stand, um, were the had the highest blitz rate of any team in the league, like versus opposing defenses. Um, Yeah, like that is an issue. That is continuing to be an issue. I felt like once things didn't develop pretty quickly, Jordan Love's pocket assessment, even without Nick Bosa, like Rasheed Walker had a tough game. I think not to keep going back to this well of next gen stats, but I'm looking at uh, their insights. Leonard Floyd generated 5 pressures on 19 pass rushes, and um, he matched up on Rasheed Walker on 12 of them, recording 4 of his pressures and both of his sacks, both
Not
of two
great.
sacks. Not great. So the pockets are collapsing, forcing Jordan Love to climb up it or scramble outside of it, and it was Dunzo. Like that is tough. That's a tough thing to kind of reconcile with, but Packers were able to overcome that and being able to not have an effective passing game um, pretty much through the second half. I I don't know what to make of it. I think it largely just continues the downward trend of Rasheed Walker, but it's like, where else are you going to go? Are you going to turn to an Andre Dillard? Are you going to reshape your offensive line configuration? Maybe that happens, but you're not going to do it on a short week. I'll tell you that much.
No, absolutely not. Like
So,
yeah, I think the Rasheed Walker didn't look great, like outside of his acumen in the run game this afternoon. But for all the pressures that Jordan Love had today, he takes I think what 2 sacks, right? And or
I'm
just
looking at it
one,
right now.
two. He had 2 sacks,
Two, yeah.
and so part of that is I I think the sacks that he took were good, like
Yeah,
the one
versus Brandon Allen, especially too.
yeah, like the sacks that Jordan Love took were timely in that if he tries to throw the ball away or tries to make a huge play out of it, something bad probably happens. And on his first sack, he steps up into the pocket versus trying to bail out to the sideline. And I think like that's one of the things that I've wanted to see Jordan Love like work on, or at least see improve over the course of the season, is that he likes to bail out left or right versus step up in the pocket and throw into it and like step into a throw. And
Yes,
that's how the first sack happened. Is that
the wave.
yep, he whoever was coming off the edge on that sack was going against Rasheed Walker, stops his rush, stunts into the middle, and gets Jordan Love for a sack. But at least he stepped up, right? He didn't try to bail out backwards and chuck the ball downfield to save the negative play. And then the other sack I don't quite remember, but I'm just glad that he wasn't bailing out outside because I think that's where a lot of like great things with Jordan Love happen, but it's also where a lot of like the bad things happen as well. And so, um, I'm happy with how he played quarterback today. Essentially, like I don't think he had too many bad throws. He had the ill-advised throw on the free play. He thought,
Couple
yeah,
they were really Ned, that one for sure, but you mentioned the Dobbs one
the Dobbs
that
one. Well, that one
could
just
have
came.
been picked off.
Well, that one was just behind Dobbs. He got hands on it, like he should have caught it, and it also wasn't a tight spiral. Like I think
Yeah, it was really
it was wobbly, and
wonky.
so not a good throw there. But I mean, the dot to Christian Watson that should have been caught was a that was a throw.
You couldn't draw that up any better.
That was an incredible throw. Like
Yeah.
it had the right amount of loft on it. It was put in the perfect spot. Like oh my word, that was a wow throw from Jordan Love. But yeah, and then like, but otherwise, I thought he played well. Like I think this team was carried by the running game today. Jordan Love only has 163 yards passing today, has 2 touchdowns to boot, but
First game that he did not throw an interception this year.
that's fine. That's perfectly fine. If that's the efficiency that we'll have, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how the offense is going to work the rest of the year, but I do think that that's if that's the way to win, so be it. Like I think that's just
Yeah.
a good way to operate. Uh, More to say.
Yeah. I agree.
Um, pass
Where
catchers today.
to next?
Pass catchers today. I thought They all played pretty well. Um, Again, there's only so many yards and so many throws. Jordan only had 13 completions out of 23 attempts. Roman Dobbs leads the way, 3 receptions, 54 yards. Then Tucker Kraft, 2 for 26. Jaden Reed, 3 for 26. Dontavian Wicks, 1 catch for 25 yards. Then Malik Heath had 2 catches for 15 yards and his second career touchdown. But I think where I want to start, just so we get it out of the way, is that uh, when was the last time you think Dontavian Wicks caught a ball?
Well, I saw that tweet that you tried to bring up, but
Yeah,
I will play dumb. I'm gonna guess week 4 against the whatever team that was. The Vikings? I think that was the Vikings.
yes, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, no, it was sooner than that, Jordan. But
Oh,
it wasn't against the Vikings. It was October 27th against the Jaguars. So
so nearly a month.
nearly a month between caught passes for Dontavian Wicks, and it was a big one. He was slanting over the middle, catches it, and runs for 25 yards. So like a good, confident catch from Dontavian Wicks, and like I think he personally needed it, kind of thing. And so
Why do you say that?
because it's been a tough year for him, a lot of drops for him this year. And so, and I think like
To your point, sorry,
nope,
to your
go ahead.
point, Next Gen Stats had showed 22 missed drops for the Packers this year, which is the most in the NFL.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a spicy meatball.
Really spicy. And so, um, John Fitzpatrick got a catch today. I don't know if you noticed that.
Fitzy. I was like, who the hell is 86?
Yeah, I thought it was 85. Like watching the game, and then they talked about like, oh, John Fitzpatrick gets his first catch of the year. I'm like, who? I
It's
forgot
like
he
I thought he was
existed.
on the rowing team.
I
Like, what are you
forgot.
talking about?
I forgot he existed. And so,
Yeah.
um,
Did he
Roman
get elevated? I know this is like Packers minutia, but is he?
might have,
That might have been it.
maybe. I don't know if he's on the 53 man. That sounds about right, honestly. Because I don't think they ever would have carried a third tight end that wasn't Ben Sims
Yeah.
or Tucker Kraft. But I don't know. But
Yeah.
regardless, like Romo Dobbs, 3 catches, 54 yards. He goes out with a possible concussion. I don't think they confirmed that. At least that what I've heard. But
Yes, I think he actually. I think
he
it was
did.
confirmed.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's tough for Thursday. Like they'll need him for Thursday. I doubt he's going to be playing on Thursday, considering that's just the nature of head injuries. I doubt he's
Yeah.
cleared by Thursday, so that'll be a tough loss there. But I mean, the rest of the way, I was pretty happy with the rest of the game for everybody else. Like Romeo Dobbs was the most targeted with 6. Hall's in 3 of them. Um, I think only Dontavian Wicks had the other quote unquote incompletion. Or no, there's a bunch of them at the bottom. Like Christian Watson had a couple of drops today, but obviously, but yeah, I was whelmed. Nothing superior, or nothing super duper to write home about. But I think most of them did their jobs outside of the unfortunate Christian Watson drop, which honestly would have been nice for him coming off of a really big game to like stack that success, and
Yeah.
he just didn't.
Yeah. It happens, but we'll remember it forever. Outside of that,
I mean,
yeah,
remember that one he dropped in Minnesota 2 years ago, 3 years ago now,
yeah,
and so like
Aaron-
it's the same thing.
yeah. Tiger Craft, I loved the touchdown. Loved nearly murdering Josh Myers. Like, you know, it's Freddy Krueger. But the biggest, I would say the biggest takeaway is Romeo Dobbs. It sucks. The play itself was like just the way he landed on his head. It was the classic, like just the force with which his head hits the turf, and you're just like, oh. And he kind of like he's falling backwards, so his head gets like kind of like doing a somersault. So it's like I think that's doubly not good. I'm not a concussion expert, but I'm just gonna say doubly not good is my diagnosis there. So yeah, Thursday feels out of the question to say the least. I wouldn't want to see him on the field, to be honest. It's just a matter of who could step up, how long will this linger on? Hopefully, it's just a game, longer week. Obviously, well, they'll play. Don't they play? It's two Thursday night football games in a row, right?
Yep, they play Miami at 7:30, whatever time it is at night, and they go to Detroit
Detroit,
for that
yes.
for the Thursday night game next week,
So
a week and a half from now.
you got 11 days to the next Thursday to your next game after Miami.
Right.
From here. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully maybe that factors in, but yeah, patience will probably be required to see a healthy Romeo Dobbs, and hopefully this is just not, something that lingers over the rest of the season because it's just
It's an ill-timed injury. It's
it's
an unfortunate one for sure.
yeah, and he was having a pretty good. I would say he was on his way to having a really good game. So I just
Yeah.
felt like he was kind of what Jordan Love needed to beat the 49ers coverage. And when he kind of took him out of the equation, it was rough for him to find, who's going to be my dependable receiver that can kind of break open the zone coverage.
Yeah. Um, Going back to the defense, let's see anything else on the offense.
No, let's talk. We got to talk defense.
Yeah. Um, Again, they played well today. We talked about them up top, but I mean, I'm not one to give him his flowers, but I will here. I thought Quay Walker played pretty well today. Like I thought
Yes.
he making a lot of like forceful tackles, which is like what I at base want to see from him. And he was doing a lot of that. Has the dropped interception, was in the right spot to get it. Um, Cleans up the sack that Rashawn Gary had forced the fumble on. Like so, he was just around today. Like that's the biggest thing with Quay is that I noticed him actually like making plays versus noticed him having huge screw ups because he's been prone to doing that, obviously. But yeah, good on Quay for actually showing up today and playing honestly a well rounded game. I wouldn't be surprised come grades tomorrow from Andy Herman, who does his own grades over for Pack a Day Podcast, fellow Blue Wire Pod, but also on PFF. Like if he gets good grades both ways from them.
Are you?
What?
I don't know. I was gonna call you the tooth fairy because it's like if you get good grades, you're gonna find a little dollar under your
You
pillow,
do
Quay
know that the
Walker.
Tooth Fairy doesn't give money for good grades.
Mine did.
Why is the Tooth Fairy giving you money for good grades versus
You
your
gotta
teeth?
reward me somehow.
I mean, I guess. I feel like your
Well,
parents could
what I
have
would do is I get an A, and then I'd be
then
like,
pull a tooth.
so
I think I
yeah,
found my thumbnail.
yeah. Oh, damn it. Why do I do these things? I don't know why I do these things. Anyway, yeah, Quay Walker. I have to. We're gushing about Quay Walker, but I just saw this tweet from Rob Domowski. Going back to that dropped interception by Quay Walker on the last drive, so obviously early on in the game. That was his fourth drop pick over the last 3 seasons. Per ESPN stats and info, only two players had four more dropped interceptions in that span entering today. Darius Williams, I believe of the Rams, cornerback for the Rams currently, and Julian Blackman, safety for the Colts. Not an illustrious list that you want to be a part of.
I mean, no,
And
but like at the same time, he's a linebacker. Like if he could catch, he'd be on offense, kind of thing. And
yeah,
if
that is,
if he's
yeah.
in coverage and in a spot to make the play, I'm fine with it. Of course, like it feels worse when you drop interceptions that are in your hands. Like we want you to catch them, like you're a pro football player. There's a base you should have, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if it'd be a lot worse if that number was a secondary, like if Quay was in secondary.
If it was like Darnell Savage last year, which I think
Yes,
we could
I'm
probably
sure he had a few as well.
I was gonna say he's
But
probably
like,
up the high on that list.
but like, yeah, that stat doesn't like bother me as much as it might other people.
It might bother you if this game was not the way
Correct.
it.
Like that's true, right? Like it
It's
wasn't
true. It's true.
the one last year during the playoff game hurts a lot more. But
The
like,
Falcons game,
yeah, like
too.
the ones that have consequences matter
Yeah.
more. But
Yeah.
I think he had other plays this game that he impacted where like he turns around and gets a sack. Like that's
Yeah.
another good way to impact the game. the times where it hurts is when Quay Walker's invisible for the entire game, drops an interception, and then like shoves a coach. Like if we're talking about
Yeah.
like, the bad Quay Walker things, like that's where it hurts. This game
Going
where
Hulk
it
smash on the equipment manager.
right, this game where they end up with 3 turnovers anyways, doesn't hurt as much. Like
Yeah.
mistakes happen. He's apparently prone to them when it comes to not catching the ball, but I mean I'm not gonna hem and haw about it.
I understand. And again, great game. 7 tackles, 6 solo, tackles for losses. I mean, they obviously one pass breakup,
Mm-hmm.
but I think you're again to echo your point earlier. Like Javon Bullard, I felt like this is probably the biggest game that he's had in terms of
I would
I
agree.
felt his presence.
Yeah, he had that tackle slash almost pass breakup against Jawan Jennings. That was like, if he's another year seasoned and maybe a little bigger, he can be able to dive his way into that flight path for the ball, and
Yep.
and make that interception. And so I thought that was a good play by him. Not a good result, but a good play. Um, yeah, he was flying around today. Everyone was flying around today. It was good.
Flying around. Lucas Van Ness caused a fumble with
Fi-
his helmet.
that was my next top talking point, is that like we finally saw Lucas Van Ness do something, and like I'm just happy that he was around a significant play. I feel like I was
Yeah.
watching him a little bit today, and every time I was watching him, I feel like he's just like not in place, which is unfortunate. But I'm glad that he didn't get home per se, but his helmet did, and knocks the ball loose and forces the fumble, which is good.
You gotta use anything to your advantage.
Have
That's
to,
what I say.
have to.
I think you asked the question of it. Rashawn Gary did finish with the sack, so
Yep, he did. Also,
continuing.
I'm looking now in case you were curious. Tyron Halper did play today. He had a tackle.
Let's go. Maybe that might have been special teams, not that.
It might have been,
But still,
but he did play. Um, and thankfully, we didn't feel Edwin Cooper's absence too much
yes.
today. Like Christian
Or dry
McCaffrey
years.
or Jair's, Christian McCaffrey held in check today, 11 carries, 31 yards. The 49ers had 44 total rushing yards today. Holy moly, that's not good. Like, sheesh.
Yeah.
And
Fumble too.
fumble too. And after a big run, like I think it was a pretty decent run he was having, and then Keyshawn Nixon punches it out. And so, yeah, I was just happy with the defense today. Eric Stokes played. He had a tackle, so like good on him. Um,
Stoke City.
yep. Trying to let's go through the list here. We didn't talk. We talked about X. Evan Williams had 4 tackles. Eric Wilson had 4 tackles. So, yeah, just an all in all a good game from the Packers defense, only holding the Niners, who again depleted, no Brock Purdy, but still Brandon Allen playing. And like I said, I thought he played decently well. Um, Goes through and they hold him to 10 points. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I hate showing this person's tweets, but this is a good tweet from Emmanuel Acho. Uh, this is rock bottom from the Niners defense. This is the first time in 37 regular season games that the Niners defense has allowed 38 or more points. Like, that's
Continue to read this tweet, please.
what's up?
The defense looks lost, helpless, and lifeless. Tomorrow's episode of The Facility with one of the worst names for
Yeah,
a television show I've ever heard in my life.
yeah, it's not a good one,
No,
but yeah,
for a talking head show.
yeah,
That sounds like a bad ER ripoff.
correct.
Like, Jesus. FS1 is a scourge on society.
Wow, tell me how
Yeah.
you really feel
You're welcome.
about FS1. But no, like that's obviously an offensive stat that I just had talked about. But I mean, the defense could not get off the field for them today, and I think part and
No.
parcel is because the offense couldn't stay on the field either. 23 minutes on offense for the Niners today, and it felt like it, and just the pass. I'm really curious to see how many pressures they got today because it felt like Brandon Allen was scampering today. Do you have that stat available?
I'm seeing if they have it on
Next gen
next gen
stats.
stats here.
They always reliable in next gen stats. Keyshawn Nixon on his forced fumble on Christian McCaffrey, quote, I ain't made a play since like week 4. I've been itching. Finally. Damn. So good on him to get that. Also, a bit of receipt watching. The George Kittle was coming into this week a little banged up, and he talked about how he was going to play no matter what because he always has to play against the Packers because it's the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
Glad you played, buddy.
Iowa boy too.
Glad you played, buddy. Like, he had a decent game, but I wouldn't say he impacted winning all that much today.
No.
So,
No, there's nothing yet about pressuring Brandon Allen
mhm.
or anything like that.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else we want to talk about? I think we kind of covered most of it. Um, I
Biggest margin of victory, biggest win for either team in the Packers 49ers rivalry, which I thought was kind of shocking.
28.
Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, they beat the bricks off of the Packers in that NFC Championship game 4 years ago,
I think
and
that
I felt
I
like
think even that was 3 touchdowns though. I think it was like 42 to
is
21 or
that
something.
true?
Yeah. They
I didn't
scored
know.
40, but the Packers weren't like dead in the water the entire game. They still scored points.
I felt dead in the water
Oh,
immediately.
yeah, cuz it started dead in the water. It doesn't mean they didn't score garbage time touchdowns.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Before we
Oh yeah, it was 37-20 was the ultimate
yeah.
final score.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
37-8?
Wasn't good, but wait, what?
That's more than yeah. Fox was wrong there.
When was that?
That same season. Because remember they played earlier in the year and the 49ers beat the crap out of
I
them,
do not remember that.
obviously. Yeah, 49ers won 37-8. They were 10-1 at that point in the
So
year.
Fox is wrong.
Fox is wrong.
Wait, no.
Unless they're saying that about the Packers, but
The Packers'
they
largest margin of victory.
they presented it as
Both
biggest.
sides. Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
Both sides. Okay.
God. Um, Before we
I
head
think
out,
we should.
I do want to talk about this Josh Jacobs tweet. Talk about the red zone. This is from Ryan Wood. Josh Jacobs on the Packers improving red zone efficiency. Quote, I just told him to give me the ball. Later asked Jacobs if he really discussed his red zone usage with Matt LaFleur and how that conversation goes. This is from Josh Jacobs. Quote, not necessarily said it, but I was like, man, trust me, allow me to figure it out because I always like us when we're down there. I always like myself. I always like betting on myself in that situation, especially when it's a yard or two. I'm like, man, I can get hit in the backfield and figure it out. He just believed in me today. It's something we joke around about all the time for real. So good on Matt LaFleur for believing in Josh Jacobs to really like again kickstart this offense. They needed to be better in the red zone, and they 1,000% were the like all day today. They looked so much better. Obviously, they scored on all 5 drives that they were in there, but golly, like it felt good to finish off those drives with touchdowns all day long today.
Yeah.
Also,
I
sorry to interrupt
no,
you.
you.
The tweets are rolling about everybody talking about they don't care how injured the Niners were, and
Yeah.
it's great. I saw one from Keyshawn Nixon. Josh Myers has some words like, good on the Packers for having that tenacity about them, and getting a win is a win. So
Current playoff probability, courtesy of NFL.com,
yep.
is 90% for the Green Bay Packers after today's win.
The New York Times needle for the playoff simulator is 94 to make the wild card.
Don't bring up that needle again.
Or, I'm sorry, 94 to make the playoffs, 91% to be a wild card team. They have a 1% chance to have a bye week and have to host a wild card because in order to host the wild card, they'll need to win their division, and fat chance the Lions are losing out. And even then, if the Lions lose out, you need the Vikings to sputter a bit and lose to the Packers because I think they're one game ahead of the Packers, and if the
Tony
Lions lose
Romo's
out, they'll beat the Vikings, or they'll lose to the Vikings, who will have a win. So yeah, regardless, it's the Packers, for all intents and purposes, will likely be the fifth seed. If I were to guess, I think right now they're six, but I
they
forget.
are currently sixth. Yes,
Yeah, who's fifth?
fifth is Minnesota.
Yeah, that would be why.
Yeah,
So they'll most likely be fifth or sixth. I doubt they get seventh.
and most importantly, as I was telling Numac before we came to you listeners live on our YouTube channel, we
Mm-hmm.
hit 2,000 subscribers
Mm-hmm.
right before we came on here. Did you mention that? I
I
think you
did
did, but I
right when we
forgot.
started. I said thank you to everybody
Well, thank
who has
you.
subbed to make us cross that 2,000 uh, subscriber threshold. If you're here and haven't, click the button. We'd always like more. Click the like button. We'd appreciate that as well. Um, but before we head out, anything else, Jordan? Or is there anything else we haven't touched on?
No, what I was gonna say is, the teams that are currently outside of the playoff picture and trying to weasel their way in, Packers have wins over all of them. Cardinals are eighth place after losing to the Seahawks today. Packers beat them. Rams are below the Cardinals. Packers beat them. Packers beat the 49ers, who are below the Rams. Like, they have done. If yeah, it's not great to be that far out of the division, but considering that the best teams in
Considering the division is considering the
yeah,
top.
the best teams in the NFC are all in the NFC North, plus Philadelphia, who you never know.
Yeah, Philly is
And
currently winning against the Rams on Sunday Night Football. They're 8-2.
yeah,
The Washington Commanders are 7-5 and seventh. So,
yeah,
um, there's a good chance. Well, the Packers are almost certainly making the playoffs just based on all the tiebreakers and everything else. They could be 5, 6, or 7 depending on how it goes down the stretch. Like that's,
yeah.
I think everyone is a stark possibility considering. Um, eh, I'd be surprised if they're seventh. They have to drop a couple of games, and um, Washington has been sort of spinning their tires as of late. They lost against the Cowboys
They
today.
lost to the Cowboys today.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
So and the Cowboys put up like 35 points today. It was nuts from them. And
Yeah,
so I think I think the Commanders will probably still be fine, but I would imagine they lose a couple more than the Packers do down the way. So
yeah.
all right,
Can't complete Hail Marys against the Bears every week. That's what I say.
that's right. Speaking of the Bears, did you see that they
Yeah,
had
another kick blocked.
and the Vikings lined up in the same exact formation the Packers did?
You might want to practice something different.
Did you also see that the Bears went to overtime with the Vikings and lost on a field goal?
Yeah, it was Tony Romo's brother.
That kicked for the Vikings?
Yeah, his name is John Romo.
The Vikings employed Tony Romo's brother? What? I didn't know this. I didn't know Tony Romo had a brother. Who?
It's not him.
No. But then why you gotta do that? It's Will Reichard, isn't it? Or Ricard?
He's hurt. He's hurt.
He's hurt.
John Parker Romo is number 96, and he hit a game-winning field goal.
So you just gaslit me into thinking it was Tony Romo's brother. Why you gotta do that?
He's the all-time leader of field goals in the XFL.
My word. But yeah, talk about being a Bears fan. You go from down 11 with like 6.5 minutes left, come all the way back, tie the game, only to lose at home to your division rival at the buzzer again. Oh,
Tough breaks.
what a cursed existence it is to be a Bears fan. Thank God that could not be me, Jordan.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks, let's get out of here. Thank you all for listening and tuning in to this week's episode of Talk of the Tundra. We'll be back in your podcast feeds Wednesday morning for previewing the Thanksgiving evening showing of Packers versus Miami Dolphins. So be on the lookout for that. Subscribe to us wherever you find your podcasts. GSPN Premium, the Substack, is $8 a month to get all of our pods ad free, as well as our After Dark extra pod every week, which is always a lot of fun. If you're a soccer fan, Andrew and Adam had a good episode as they outline their upcoming bromantic trip as Andrew flies over the pond to see Adam and then take in a week of soccer. So go subscribe for $8 a month that way and give that a listen. Everything else, GSPN, can be found at gspn.info, which is the Substack, all of our links to pods and things like that. Appreciate you all for listening. We will talk to you on Wednesday. You'll hear from us on Wednesday. And Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.